What is up, folks? Welcome back to the Supplement Copywriting channel. And in today's video, we're going to be going over how do you beat mini VSL fatigue and squeeze as many sales and as much money as possible out of a mini VSL that you currently have working. The reason that this ends up happening is because when you're trying to scale a mini VSL on cold traffic, you're inevitably not going to knock it out of the park on the first try. You're going to have to split test and really iterate your way to getting that to scale. But it's not going to stay at scale forever, because what ends up happening is when your audience has seen the same ad repeatedly, they stop engaging with it, they stop clicking on it. And so the ad platform that you're running on is going to stop showing that ad to as many people in that audience, and it makes it very difficult to get results. So the real question is, what do you do when this happens? How do you breathe new life into this mini VSL to squeeze as much money as possible out of it as you possibly can? And so that's really what today's video is going to be all about. We're going to be looking at why does mini VSL and creative ad fatigue happen and what should you do about it. We're going to be discussing the number one mistake that ecom companies make when this happens and the thing that you want to avoid. And then number three, really the crux of this overall video that you should definitely stick around and watch, is what are the 5 proven strategies that you can take and use that are really easy to implement that will allow you to really refresh and iterate on these mini VSLs to get them back up to a level of scaling. So that's really what today's video is going to be all about. So let's go ahead and dive into the meat and potatoes of today's video. Now, the very first thing is, what is creative ad fatigue and what is mini VSL fatigue? I already kind of touched on it a second ago, so I'm not going to go and really belabor the point. But it's really when your mini VSL stop working because too many people have seen them too many times on the platform. So, predominantly Facebook and areas like that. What ends up happening is people get bored of seeing the same mini VSLs repeatedly, and so they stop clicking and they stop engaging with your ad. And so when this happens, it sends a signal to the platform that fewer people are engaging with your mini VSL. So this platform is going to show them to fewer and fewer people, making it very difficult to get a good result. Now, here is the number one mistake that I see ecom companies make when their mini VSLs start to fatigue. And that is they rush to create brand new mini VSL ads. Instead, they should be iterating on the current winners to give them a refresh. The reason for this is because if you have a proven structure, you have a proven angle, and a mini VSL that's already winning, it's way better to iterate on what's already worked and give it a refresh rather than try to start back at the drawing board and come up with a brand new script, a brand new creator, more editing, all those kinds of things. And I'm going to show you guys in just a second exactly how to go about iterating on what's already worked to breathe new life in it and to be able to have iterations that are scaling again. And also, one of the best things about this is that it saves you time, it saves you money and energy while allowing you to maximize the creatives that you've already produced. You don't have to, like I said, start back at the drawing board with new scripts, more creators, more editors, all that kind of stuff. But the real question that a lot of people have when how to iterate on a mini VSL is, how do you do it? So the next section of this all is going to be 5 proven strategies to beat mini VSL ad fatigue and to get more sales from the creatives you've already produced. So we're going to be going over quick and dirty tactics that you can take and use, super simple, easy to implement. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Number 1, we have hook stacking. Now, if you have a mini VSL with a winning hook and a good hook rate, typically 40 to 50%, really, you don't need to do a ton in this arena. You can use what's called hook stacking. Now, hook stacking is where you stack a new hook on top of the current hook and script. This really is something that can refresh it. It gives people a new way to capture their attention, and you have the new hook, and then you have the proven hook below it. So this is a great way to refresh it, recapture people's attention, make it feel like it's a new ad. It's not the same old hook that they've heard, 5, 6 times in the past week. And so simply by literally just putting a new hook on top of the current proven hook and body that you have in the mini VSL, you can totally refresh it and probably have some new graphics to go along with that hook and everything along those lines too. And usually, but not always, the more clickbaity and kind of cringe the hook is, the better it works. I wish it wasn't the case, but I've tested a number of these, and I can tell you the more clickbaity and kind of cringe the hook is, the better it usually performs, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I'm a fan of what works. So take that for what it is. The next thing would be if you have a winning mini VSL, a lot of the times you can make that shorter or longer depending on what your audience needs. Now, the reason that you would make a mini VSL shorter or longer is because they might need more or they might need less information to go ahead and convert. Now, for a mini VSL that you're going to take and make longer, not always, but some of the time, what you're going to be adding in a little bit more of there is you're going to be adding in a unique mechanism of the problem. You're going to be adding in a unique mechanism of the solution, and you're going to be really breaking down exactly how the product works, giving them simple, typically 3 to 4 steps of exactly what they do to get the result, and typically stacking in a bit more social proof to overcome any skepticism is another good thing to do there if you're going to be taking the mini VSL and making it longer. For shorter mini VSLs, if you need to trim it down a bit, typically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trimming down the lead so it's not as long and you get people kind of into the meaty part of the mini VSL quicker. You might not go as deep into the pain points, and you're just going to overall get to the product intro a lot quicker, because if people don't need a ton of information to buy, then you're really just wasting space and you're risking having people click off the ad because they might already understand how it works. They might have already seen the ad a few different times. They're interested, they want to buy. So you can get into the product introduction significantly quicker and actually have that increase your conversions. Now, this is going to be strictly based on what your data says. I am not somebody who is a big fan of like just going off of feelings. Obviously, whenever we are iterating on a mini VSL, we're going to have a hypothesis, but always really let the data drive what decision you're making. And so that's where having somebody inside your company that really knows how to read the data, having a good media buyer comes in crucial for this. But you might need a shorter or a longer mini VSL, just depending on if the people need more or less information to go ahead and buy. The next thing is going to be using different audio. So you can change the music, you can add sound effects, or maybe you need to switch up the actual voiceover and use an AI voiceover and test something like that. You can also try an entirely new creator voiceover, and using new sounds and new audio can have a dramatic impact on the conversions. You can also play around with speeding up the audio in the mini VSL too. Is you take something that's at like 1x and you speed it up to like 1.15x speed, and suddenly it is converting a little bit better. So these are all things, like none of these are hard and fast rules. These are things that you're going to have to play around with. You're going to have to see what works for your particular brand. But these are different ways that you can take the same creative assets that you've already produced and really maximize the amount of sales that you get from them. And again, these are just ideas. These are all different hypotheses. You're going to need to test it and see what works the best for your brand. Now, next up, we have different creators and different B-roll. If you have a proven script and you have a proven angle that you know resonates with your audience and is doing extremely well, then you can literally take that exact same script and just get a new UGC actor to read the script, or have a new person go and record the script for you. Now, in the same vein, you can try adding in B-roll to a strictly UGC mini VSL, and you can also kind of mix and match these. So again, like I said previously, this is really just a scientific method with mini VSLs and ads is really what it comes down to. We have a hypothesis, we're going to test it, we're going to see what works, see what the data says, and then really make different iterations and different split tests based on what we get back from the data. Always follow the data no matter what. And so, like I said, you can get new UGC actors to read the script. You can try adding in B-roll to a strictly UGC mini VSL. You can actually go the opposite way. And if you have a mini VSL that is strictly B-roll, you can have some UGC that is split into there. And then you can also just really mix and match these together to get a new feeling mini VSL that doesn't fatigue as quickly or revives the mini VSL that you've been using. And then this is the last thing. I know that I've said it a few times throughout this, but it's really worth bearing in mind. Keep in mind, all testing when it comes to this stuff is really just a hypothesis. We don't know exactly what's going to work, but we have a guess at what does. And so we're really going to go on that best guess and practices based on what we've seen thus far. And the unfortunate fact is a lot of split tests are going to bomb. That's just the way that it goes. This is the game of marketing, unfortunately. Dan Kennedy has that famous quote where he says, anybody who willingly chooses to work as a direct response copywriter or a direct response marketer has to have a certain form of mental illness. because they are knowingly engaging in a career where they're going to be wrong significantly more than they're going to be right. And no place is this more true than when you are testing mini VSL. So you're going to have a lot of bombs. Just know that ahead of time. It doesn't mean that you're crap at what you do or anything like that. Really, what we are doing is it's a game of iterating to get closer and closer to what does work, to getting the right answer. And the really like the best part of this all is that the outsized returns from a winning mini VSL can make up for a ton of losers. So you only need to be right a few different times in these split tests to have the revenue and the sales that you generate entirely eclipse all the losses and all the split tests that bombed. So no matter what, when you're going through and trying all of these, just keep in mind that it is a game of iteration. It is a game of we're going to be wrong more than we're going to be right in a lot of these cases, but we're just trying to get closer and closer to find out what does work. And then when it does crack and scale, that's going to make up for a ton of losers in the past that didn't work. So those are the 5 different ways that you guys can take a mini VSL that has hit some fatigue, that is getting shown to less people, that isn't getting as much engagement from your audience, and you can breathe new life into them and make the same creative that you've already done, take it, switch it up, and essentially get it back to scale and have a new iteration. And the reality is, the cool part about understanding those things that I just shared is that you can. So really, it doesn't matter what style of mini VSO you're using, all of these are still going to apply. You can always stack a new hook on top of a proven hook and a proven structure in winning mini VSL. You can decide whether the mini VSL needs to be longer or shorter, depending on whether your audience needs more or less information to go ahead and convert and buy. You can play around with the audio, and that means you could add sound effects, you can change up the music, you can switch up the voiceover, you can get a new creator to do it. And then also at the same time, you can play around with having entirely new creators record the exact same script, or you can take and mix in B-roll into a strictly UGC style video, and you can take a strictly B-roll video and mix in UGC style content with that as well. So I hope this helps. I hope this was informative for you guys and gave you some new ideas for really squeezing as much as you can out of a current winning mini VSL to make sure that it doesn't fatigue as quickly and that you can consistently have a higher level of scale and more winning mini VSLs in your ad account. So hope this helps. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Adios.